Hello everyone! From time to time, I have people asking me what novels I would recommend and what reading order they should follow to get into the lore of Warcraft. Before we dive into my recommendations and we talk about all the stuff that's available, let's first cover our giveaway for today. Blizzard has been kind enough to send over a copy of the Warcraft Chronicle Volume 2, and to make the set complete, I ordered Volume 1 myself to give away to one lucky person. From the 29th of April until the 6th of May, so for 1 week, you can enter the giveaway by taking a screenshot of your favorite lore moment or location while dressed up in your favorite transmog set. If you're out there and you don't have any game time left, then don't worry, you can feel free to be creative. What you want to do with the screenshot is tweet it at me, that's at Nobble87, with the hashtag myfavoriteloremoment, one word, and the hashtag will let me search for the entries more easily, so make sure to put it in your tweets, and if you win, I'll be sure to get in touch with you. A big thank you to Blizzard for allowing me to do this giveaway, and best of luck to all of you if you're going to enter. Right, so let's talk about all the lore that's available, since there's a lot to cover. Say that you want to start, then of course my first recommendation would be to pick up the World of Warcraft Chronicle Volume 1 and Volume 2. These are designed to clean up the established lore, whereas Volume 1, it talks about the very origin of the Warcraft universe, the ordering of Azeroth and its early history, all the way to the corrupted Guardian Medivh. Volume 2 talks about the ordering of Draenor, the early history of the planet, the rise of the Horde, all the way to the Horde's second invasion and shutting down the Dark Portal. The Chronicles tell a lot of story, so you might wonder why even bother with the rest of the material, and that is to get more details out of it. What did the characters think, and what more happened that's not described in the Chronicles? For those details, you have the novels and the comics and the short stories to support it. If you're wondering what's still canon and what's not, as in canon meaning what is part of the official lore and what has changed, I go with the idea that as long as it doesn't conflict with the Chronicles, as long as the Chronicles doesn't tell a different story, then in my mind, that story is still canon. So say you picked up the Chronicles and you want to go into the novels or whatnot, where to begin? Well, it's a little bit difficult to give you a set list. You could just go chronological, which I'll link a list for in the description down below, or you can go for whatever subject you're most interested in. If you ask me, which one would I highly recommend, then the first option would be the War of the Ancient Trilogy. This tells the tale of one of the biggest wars that ever took place on Azeroth, the reason why the land looks like it does today. It throws in a bit of dragon lore, you got your demons, the Burning Legion, a little bit of time travel. It takes a bit to get into the story, but once it grabs you, it tells one hell of a tale. And then the second recommendation, that would be the series Rise of the Horde, followed by The Last Guardian, Tides of Darkness, Beyond the Dark Portal, and Lord of the Clans to finish it all up. These books, they tell one massive story about the formation of the Horde into the invasion of Azeroth, all the way to the point where Thrall picks up as War Chief of the Horde. Lord of the Clans is still my favorite novel to date, and combined, they tell an amazing story. Next to that, it really comes down to what stories you're interested in. Do you want to know more about the dragon aspects, then pick up Dawn of the aspects to learn more about the origin, Day of the Dragon and Night of the Dragon to find out what happened with the Dragon Soul, and how Crassus and Ronin teamed up. Are you curious about the mindset between the Alliance and Thrall's new Horde? Then books like Of Blood and Honor and Cycle of Hatred would be for you. Want to know more about the Lich King story arc? What was going on through Arthur's mind as he had to deal with the Scourge of Lordaeron? Check out Arthas, Rise of the Lich King, which combines very well with the Death Knight manga, the free short story Road to Damnation, and the Ashbringer comics. Arthas' actions, they had a big impact on the world, especially for the High Elves of Silvermoon, who found their Sunwell corrupted and picked up the name Blood Elves. More information on them and the Sunwell that can be found in The Blood of the Highborn and the Sunwell trilogy.
4 years have passed since the mortal races banded together and stood united against the might of the Burning Legion.
To complement classic World of Warcraft and to understand more about Onyxia, Varian Return to Stormwind, the negotiations between Thrall and Varian, all of that can be found in the World of Warcraft comics. They're just called World of Warcraft and they go over quite a large time period, namely from Classic into Wrath of the Lich King. In that time, we saw the Draenei join the Alliance, and in my opinion, one of the best free short stories out there called Unbroken. It tells more about their war with the Horde and Draenor and how they found their way to shamanism. Vol'jin the Judgment tells the tale of Vol'jin and his path to become a Shadow Hunter. Garrosh, Heart of War, tells about Garrosh's mindset when it comes to Thrall and his hordes. Lor'thmar, in the Shadow of the Sun, it explains more about a favorite Blood Elf leader and their dealings with the fallen Ranger General Sylvanas Windrunner. And to finish these leaders off, we have Sylvanas Windrunner, Edge of Night, which explains what the Bench Queen did after finishing her mission of bringing Arthas to justice, and this all leads into the Cataclysm. Now just before the Cataclysm, we have the novel Stormrage, which is about Malfurion Stormrage dealing with Xavier Davius and the Emerald Nightmare, a similar story that we saw in Legion. The War of the Shifting Sands, the short story, it explains a bit more about the Night Elves' war with the Karaji, the water we brought down during Classic, and the history of Fandral Stackhelm. Another novel to bring about the Cataclysm is called The Shattering, which explains the changes to the factions before the changes to the worlds. The Alliance saw the introduction of the Worgen, and the comic The Curse of the Worgen, it explains what happened to Gilneas and how the Worgen curse came to be. A whole bunch of short stories are available to accompany the faction leaders. There's Gen Greymane, Lord of his Pack, the Council of Three Hammers, Fire and Iron, Tyrone and Malfurion, Seeds of Faith, Bane Bloodhoof as our fathers before us, and Gallywix, Trade Secrets of a Trade Prince. Then, during the Cataclysm, we have the novel Wolfheart, which explains two major stories. One of them is about Jared Shadowsong finding his way back to his people after leaving them at the end of the War of the Ancients, reuniting with his sister Maiev and whatnot, and then there's also Varian's journey, getting in touch with his feral side, a continuation of the separation that took place in the Warcraft comics. This is then followed by the short stories Velen, Prophet's Lesson, Varian Rin, Blood of Her Fathers, Charge of the Aspects, which is set around the time that the Aspects were busy healing Nordrassil, and then we have the novel Thrall, Twilight of the Aspects, that explains why and how Goel teamed up with the Dragon Aspects during the Dragon Soul raid.
For the dawning of the Age of Mortals has begun.
Then we have the expansion Mist of Pandaria, and just before we ventured forth into the lands previously hidden by the mist, we have the novel Jaina Proudmoore Tides of War, which is all about Garrosh leading the Horde into their war, the bombing of Pakulia, something that you can also see a glimpse of with the in-game scenario. Now to complement all the stories that Pandaria had, we have Burdens of Shaohao, which you can find on the Warcraft YouTube channel. This tells the tale of Emperor Shaohao dealing with his emotions and the coming sundering of the worlds. Next to that, there's also Destination Pandaria, which is a whole series tied to the story of that expansion, which adds a whole bunch of detail. This includes Pearl of Pandaria, Quest for Pandaria, Lily's Travel Journal, The Trial of the Red Blossoms, Bleeding Sun, The Blank Scroll, Death from Above, The Strength of Steel, Overwater, The Untamed Valley, and The Jade Hunters. The novel Vol'jin Shadows of the Horde, that explains the time period between Vol'jin getting his throat sliced and him returning to lead the Darkspear Rebellion, and at the end of Siege of Orgrimmar, the end of Mist of Pandaria, we did not end Garrosh's life. Instead, we placed him on trial, a tale told in the novel War Crimes, which then leads into the next expansion, Warlords of Draenor.
This is our chance. Storm the portal!
Some of the Warlords, they got a moment to shine in the Lords of War series, a couple of videos up on the Warcraft YouTube channel that tells the background for the Warlords as we saw them during the expansion. A couple of short stories to add to Warlords, we have Code of Rule if you're interested in the hierarchy from Heimal, Apocrypha for the Arakoa, and Hellscream if you want to know how Garrosh convinced Gromash to team up with him and form the Iron Horde. Warlords also had a couple of comics. We have Blackhand that explains how Warchief Blackhand got his name and a bit more about the history of the Doomhammer. Blood and Thunder that explains more about the family story that we saw in Frostfire Ridge with Durotan, Gennard, Fenris. And then there's Gul'dan and the Stranger, which is a bit of an oddball since I believe it's supposed to explain more about Gul'dan's activity as we saw at the start of Warlords, but it's a little bit disconnected from what we actually saw in-game.
You made a pact.
Warlords then leads into Legion, with alternate Gul'dan being sent over to R. Azeroth, and more details on his background that can be found in his Harbinger episode, a video that you can find on the Warcraft YouTube channel. To learn more about the history of Illidan, what his plans were, and why the Demon Hunters constantly moan about all the things that they have sacrificed, that is described in the novel Illidan, and then one of their missions that is shown in Illidan's Harbinger episode, also up on the Warcraft YouTube channel. There, you can also find an amazing audio drama about Khadgar and Maiev trying to stop Gul'dan at Tomb of Sargeras before the Legion even invaded. And then we have Khadgar's Harbinger episode that has him tempted by the power of the Guardian.
The Burning Legion has returned.
Magni Faultlines is an online comic which explains the return of Magni after being crystallized in the Shattering. The short story Dark Mirror explains the relationship between Navanos Blightcaller and Sylvanas Windrunner. The online comic High Mountain, A Mountain Divided, and Nightborn Twilight of Suramar. They both explain more about the background and the history of those two zones that we quested in. Then we have Anduin, Son of the Wolf, that takes place after we return to the Broken Shore, and Anduin is dealing with his new role as king. We're not quite done yet, we're almost there. We also have the Warcraft movie that takes place in sort of an alternate reality. It does its own spin on the lore, and it has its books to accompany it. There's Durotan, similar to Rise of the Horde, only much more focused on the war chief of the Frostwolf clan. Bonds of Brotherhood, whereas Durotan explains the pre-story from the Horde side of things, this one explains the relationship between Medivh, Lane and Lothar. And then the official Warcraft movie novelization, which is pretty much the Warcraft movie in written form, with a couple of minor details that didn't make it into the movie. And then, as our final book to cover today, we have Traveler, which is very hard to place in the timeline, and it very much stands on its own. It's cute, that would be the word that I use to describe it. If you're into swashbuckling pirate adventures and you're curious about a bit more background on some of the races that don't often get the spotlights, this one is definitely worth to pick up. And that's what I have to do for today, ladies and gentlemen. As you can tell, there's a whole lot of stuff to read up on if you feel so inclined. And there are even a couple more comics and manga that you could pick up, but they are really specific, like Draka's origin story, for example, that is told in Warcraft Legends, or the Dark Moon Fair or whatnot. They are very specific and only if you're really interested in that subject. Naturally, you could always check out Wowpedia. This is a website that pretty much has all the lore covered that Warcraft has in individual pages. So for example, you are interested in Draka or Durotan or Gul'dan or Khadgar or Anduin or whatever, just go to Wowpedia, search up the topic, and you should be able to find most of the information. I really hope that some of you will find some use out of this list, and best of luck to all that are going to enter the giveaway. And with that, we've reached the end of the video, so thank you very much for watching, everyone. Subscribe if you like my videos, leave a like if you enjoyed this one, and until next time guys, see ya!